This episode is sponsored by Echo. Hear clearly, care confidently.
Learn more at echohealth.com. That's EKO health.com. And use code JSP for $50 off any stethoscope.
Just Some Podcast Media.
The thoughts and opinions on Just Some Podcast are of the hosts and guests and do not represent the views of organizations that employ them or they volunteer for. They are also not responsible for spontaneous black holes or nuclear wars that may occur. You have been warned.
Welcome, everybody, to another fun-filled and exciting episode of Just Some Podcast. This is Tom.
Hey, this is Ben. Tom, is going to be a special episode.
Why is that?
Well, because you and I are here, and I mean, isn't that enough?
Yeah. Let's just go with yes. There you go. It's yes.
It's a special episode because this is actually wrapping up our fourth season. So it's our 4th year anniversary of doing Just Some Podcast, which is kind of crazy.
It's kind of weird.
I know. Like, we're going into our 5th year of
people listening to us talk. Yeah. 5 years. Didn't expect it. I mean, I didn't know what I expected, to be honest. I just kept an open mind, and I thought we were going to have some fun, and maybe some people would like it, and maybe I'd have a cousin that downloaded it or something like that, nothing. And here we are 5 years later. So it has been quite a ride, and I am still hopeful about what the future brings. I'm still excited that we're going to get to continue to do this and maybe someday get bigger and be able to do more.
Yeah, no, it's been a ride so far, and we'll talk more about that. Like, I have some numbers and some interesting things that I thought, because I'm kind of a numbers guy, and so I thought,
yes, you are completely the numbers guy in this relationship. Yes, absolutely. I'm I don't know. Let's do it. So there you go. Which is so weird. Hold on. It's our show. It's our special. I want to, I'm going to do whatever I want. So it's weird though, Ben, because I'm only what?
Said it's going off the rails.
It's going off the rails.
Minute and a half.
I'm only like that for some things though, Ben. I find that really weird about me, that there are some things I can't do unless I know every detail. And then there's other things that I'm like, I don't care about any details. Let's just go do this. I don't know. What is wrong with me?
If I could solve that problem,
maybe we're going to have Eric back for a series and see what's going on.
Diagnosing Tom on the next Just Some Podcast.
Well, they do love watching or listening to me suffer. But really, you are definitely in this half of the equation, the logical sense of, sensible, like, what are we going to do? And then like, this is what we should do. And I'm like, okay. And then we just do something. I don't know. That's just how it happens. So I'm not shocked at all that you have all the numbers. When do we get to hear them?
Well, I figured we'd talk a little bit and then we could.
Oh, I thought we were going to jump right into numbers.
Well, I mean, I guess we can.
No, too late now, Ben. You've ruined the magic. It's time to talk about other things.
Story of my life, ruining the magic.
So did you ever think this is where we'd be?
No. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew you would. But I mean, I didn't know what to expect.
Well, for instance, this wasn't even the format of the show when we started. If you think about the first couple of episodes, I mean, we might have talked for a few minutes, but the episode was very fact driven. Well, did you know 12% of the time that you can use Zyrtec and blah, 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 blah. Not that we didn't try and be entertaining. It's just, we were very much more in that mode versus now we're way more of a conversation.
Yeah.
And so when someone says, can you see yourself here? I'm like, I didn't even see what we're doing now. I can't have predicted it 4 years ago. So it's always interesting to want to talk to you about that, or people that have been listening to the show for a long time. I'd like to hear what they also have to say about how they feel, where we've been and where we're going, and what they want to see going into the future. If anybody writes in, we don't get a lot of viewer response.
No, we don't.
Viewer. I say viewer like we're on television. Yes. We don't get a lot of listener response. But I don't necessarily think that's all bad, because well, maybe they just don't have anything bad to say. And I guess that's not the worst thing in the world, but at the same time, I would like some feedback from our listeners if there is something that they're interested in, because we actually care. On one of our other podcasts, a listener wrote in a suggestion. We actually had them come on the show to talk about the suggestion. So, I mean, if we just some podcast listeners ever want to do something like that, like reach out. We do pay attention. So,
and I think we've proven that over the years with Amberlyn reached out to us and said, hey, I'm an NV student and I really love the show. And we're
yeah, that's right. That was technically the first time. Yeah, that was technically the first time we had someone do that.
And so and Casey, which we'll be following up with them here in the next few months to see how their fall semesters are going. So yeah, I mean, it's just been, I don't know, it's been interesting to see how everything has progressed.
It's been interesting to see how the show has moved forwards. But I guess another thing is there's no way we could have predicted the pandemic, stuff like that. So, I mean, this show started pre-COVID.
Yeah. I mean, we started 2018.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is for someone that's been listening through us, we have gone through some shit together. This podcast has spanned a worldwide pandemic. I mean,
and I think at least for us, and I hope maybe even for the listener, that I mean, some of this is almost like cathartic, and it's almost like therapy by getting to go through this stuff together and getting to talk about it. And at least especially when we do our live streams like on Facebook, where we get that direct interaction, which sometimes it goes off the rails rather quickly.
Yes, when you have no control over the crowd. Yeah,
So, like I said, 4 years, Tom, that we've been doing the show. We'll get into some of the numbers now.
Which anniversary is this? We're coming up. We're on our 4th anniversary.
4th anniversary is we're starting our 5th year.
So what is that, like paper? Like I don't remember what's 4th anniversary.
I didn't get you anything. So
I would say, shouldn't you be getting me a present? And it's got to be made out of wood or something. Hold on. While you're giving me some numbers, Ben, I'm going to look that up.
So that's what I was actually doing while you were talking.
Oh,
I think it is paper.
Look at that. You know what?
In the U.S., the 4th anniversary is fruits and flowers. Is the 4th year anniversary.
Fruits or flowers?
Yeah.
And you said in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Come on, U.S. The whole world already had a system set up. You did not have to go and make, God, dog. No, I'm sticking with paper. All right. I called it. That's a hell of a guess, by the way.
I think that may have been the first year. I was just reading.
Damn it. I just remember it was something like that. Like, I've done the anniversaries. I've given presents. I knew that was like one of them. And I was like, oh, boy.
So first year is paper. 2nd year is cotton. 3rd year is leather. 4th year is fruits and flowers in the U.S. or linen and silk in the U.K. Modern gift theme is appliances, electrical for the 4th year.
Okay. Well, you can give me a new iPhone. I'd let you do that.
If we survive another year, it'll be in wood. Wood will be the next one.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
I knew that was in there somewhere. Did America allow that one in with everybody else? Yep. Okay. I'm glad we decided to conform. So I don't know, because I got to be honest, linen and silk sounds a lot cooler than fruits and flowers.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we should rock the silk pajamas for season 5 and we can, just...
I would totally Hugh Hefner that. I would every episode walk into here in a silk bathrobe and slippers and just sit down and be like, hey, and just Ben's like, and tonight's episode on prostate exams. I'm like, yeah, cat daddy. And then just move forward. It's like, who knows what's going to happen? So I think, wow, 5th year. Should we have a theme? Ooh, that's an idea. Dear listeners.
Let's put that out to the listeners. Should we have a theme for the 5th? I mean, because we're always.
Yeah, should we have once a year have a theme? Yeah, once a year we'll just develop a theme, huh?
Yeah. So, if you got any ideas out there, jsp@justsomepodcast.com or reach out to us on our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you can find us all at. You know where that's at, our website. So, reach out to us if you have a good idea for a theme. Even Pantless Jen, we're going to allow you to enter this as well. So,
she is.
Although, I don't know that Pantless will be the best option for us to go. Let me clarify that now.
Yeah, but definitely one of the dearest listeners to the show. She's always been there with us. So, yeah, we always like to hear from Pantless Jen. So let us know. But Ben, let's hear some of these numbers.
Right.
I want to hear some more numbers. We talked about anniversary presents, and you're going to get me an iPhone. That's legally binding, by the way. People heard you say that. So
okay.
now let's get into some numbers. Because there's only one number that matters to me, Ben.
What's
you want to hear my number? And it's 0.
Why 0?
Because that's how many fucking times we've been played on the space station. Okay. So until I get on the goddamn space station, we'll do the show until the end of time. And I think our time is clicking actually on the International Space Station. I think they're getting plans to decommission it or something. Like Americans ain't going to be on it. And I don't know how to speak Russian, so I don't think they're going to be downloading this anytime soon. I don't think they're the friendliest guys with us at the moment. So I'm just saying we got to get this done ASAP.
All right. Well, over the last 4 years, we have put out a total of 145 episodes. 9 of those have been bonus episodes. We did 51 episodes in season 1, 33 episodes season 2, 34 episodes season 3, and 27. We'll count this 28 because this episode also will be season 4. Now, some of those decreases were because of the pandemic, because there was a lot of time that we took off kind of in that, during that, initially in 2020. And then when we launched We'll Continue to Monitor, of course, we changed the format of this show to be designed to be a bi-weekly show as opposed to a weekly show. So that's why some of that decrease in the numbers. You want to guess the average length of the episodes, Tom?
42 minutes.
The average for the total, for all the episodes, 61 minutes and just some change, like 1 or 2 seconds, but basically 61 minutes. We have had 49 episodes with guests.
Sounds right.
154. And several of those have been multiple guests as well. I don't have that specific number, but
fail.
I know. Who do you think has been on the show the most?
Ooh. Jeff.
Just number of episodes.
Jeff.
It is Jeff. You want to guess how many?
7.
9. Jeff has been on the show 9. You had first, who's next?
Eric.
No. Probably.
Okay. Oh, yeah. We should have her back on the show.
We should. But, she's been on the show 8 times. And then Eric has been on the show 5 times. So that's kind of their top 3 as far as the most frequent guests. Looking at some other numbers, we've been downloaded right at about 140,000 downloads all time. Over 33,000 of those have been just this year. And the United States is the most popular. We've been downloaded there 113,000 times. Canada is next at 1,253. So there's a pretty drastic drop off between first and second there.
Holy cow. Holy cow. When they say we're downloaded everywhere, I didn't think they meant once. God damn.
A few countries, yeah, it's just one. But
Uruguay, I'm looking at you.
United Kingdom's third with 961. Australia's next, 633.
Love you, Australia.
Ireland is, like I said, be 5th.
Ireland.
405.
I'm looking at you. That's right.
381.
Hey. My family's homeland, the freaking Germany. You know what is weird? I did one of those DNA tests, Ben, and I also have English blood or DNA in me, and I didn't know that. So that was a new one. Have you done one of those?
I have not. I need to, though.
Well, just saying, Ireland, England, Germany, I'm your boy. Okay, so let's just keep that in mind when you're downloading these episodes. And Canada, I don't know what's going on with you. Stop eating the poutine and start downloading some Just Some Podcast. All right, those are rookie numbers.
Do you want to take a guess of how many countries total we've been downloaded in at least once?
168.
94.
Oh, okay, I was off by a few.
Just a bit outside.
You mean to tell me that in Benin, nobody has downloaded Just Some Podcast?
I'm telling you, 94 countries. Of course,
you're going to sit there operating a computer and you're going to tell me that nobody in the Democratic Republic of Congo has taken the time to download Just Some Podcast.
Yes, I am, because I just searched Congo and it's not in there.
You are going to try and tell me that in the entire world that not one soul in East Timor has decided that Just Some Podcast was worth downloading.
Is that even?
There's not. Yes, that is a real country. There's not a lot going on there, so they have plenty of time to download Just Some Podcast.
We have been downloaded in Iceland, but not Greenland. So
that's why Vikings didn't want to stay in Greenland, because it's a terrible place. It's full of bad people that don't download podcast. Now, Iceland, on the other hand, I love you. I've actually considered moving to you. Please download me more. I don't want to have to learn how to speak Icelandic, so let's just keep it at that.
I don't know about you sometimes.
Hey, it's a great place. I want to move there. It's full of Vikings, man. That's cool.
Apple has by far been our most popular downloading medium.
Okay.
Apple Podcasts and Apple Core Media, which are the top two, are about 80,000.
Oh,
Spotify were over 2,700. And Amazon, like Audible and Amazon Music, we're at almost 3,000.
Hey, now.
I know.
Yeah, we're diverse. You know what, Ben? So
all the numbers I have.
Well, what I was going to say is what the people aren't going to hear are some of the things that we probably like bantered about, like in between stuff that is edited out, and some of the pauses when we stop and we're looking at something, you know, that stuff's edited out. And I think a person that doesn't get any credit, and I would like to say something, because we say his name 30 times an episode, but the public never hears it, and that's our editor, Jason.
Yeah.
So Jason, don't edit this part out. Jason has got to be the hardest working editor in podcasting, because he edits both of our shows. And so you can just imagine what this poor man has to go through to help make Just Some Podcast, and we'll continue to monitor shows. However, while Ben is the level-headed guy and he's numbers, and I mean, don't worry, he makes mistakes. Clearly, he chose to do a podcast with me. That's mistake number one. So that's what I'm saying. You can't. Your entire career now is built on a fault. You can't expect perfection at this point, Ben. But Ben makes some mistakes. But let's be real clear. Everybody that's ever heard this show understands who, well, can take this in another direction pretty fast. So Jason's job is to make me sound like I'm coherent when I'm speaking to Ben. And so far, he's done a great job. So even though Ben deserves a world of credit for doing this the first several years, I just want to point out how amazing Ben, you know, the job he did, and how great Jason has picked up and done. So it's an unsung position. Nobody hears or sees, you know, the person behind the screen that does a lot of the editing, but by God, the show you're hearing sounds this way because of them.
Yeah, no, Jason is amazing.
Jason is amazing. So is Ben. But we say Jason's name, like I said, 30 times an episode, and it's just like, we screwed up. Jason, cut this out. And then we move forward, and you never hear that. So I wanted you to hear us talk about that, maybe leave that pause, you know, when Ben was looking at something, so that they understand. That's what it really sounds like. I mean, there's a lot of conversation. It's very fast sometimes, but then there's times where for 30 seconds, it's just air while we're doing something. And these two, you know, like I said, Ben in the beginning, but Jason now, have just made it sound amazing. They make me sound wonderful. And that is a miracle within itself. So before we move any further, I wanted to say thank you to Ben, but big shout out to Jason, who gets no credit, and he deserves some. So probably not a lot. I mean, I really do a lot of the work, but Jason makes it sound okay. So
yeah. Because I've texted him before or emailed him. I'm like, hey, you know, I'm sorry that this episode's, we went really, you know, off the rails, and, you know, can you bring it back for us? And he's like, it's great, because he's like, he loves that he gets his own special episode.
The cutting room floor is Jason's own little. That's fantastic. No, I'm glad. I mean, I've thought about it before, but this, when I was just sitting here and you were doing something, I was trying to look up something on my phone real quick before we moved forwards. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, you know, we never really talk about this part. So, you know, big shout out to everyone that does a podcast that does editing, but in particular, Ben and Jason. And our boy Jason has done a great job for several months to a year now. How long has Jason been?
At least 8 months, I think.
Okay, well, he's done a fantastic job. He does a great job on both of our shows. So again, couldn't thank him enough. Thank you, Jason. But I'm done talking about you now. It's time to do the rest of my show. So I got other stuff to do, Ben. Let's go. We got a podcast to do. Let's go.
Well, what else do you want to talk about?
Well, episode done. Click. So
that would be great. Yeah, like, and I got a podcast to do, and then
yeah, just edit. Oh my god, that would be so amazing. We might get some viewer response then. Hey, wait a second. You said welcome to the rest of the show, and then it just was silence for 19 minutes, and then the episode ended.
Hey, Tom, did you know Superman had a lot of superpowers? I mean, he had the ability, he had like the X-ray vision, and he could stop a train and stop a bullet and all this other cool stuff. You know what else he had? He had super hearing. And he had the ability to hear everything on Earth, every conversation on Earth, which is a little creepy. But I mean, that's from the comic books, had that ability to. But you know what else gives you super hearing, Tom?
An Echo Littman core stethoscope?
Exactly, because it gives you that 40-time amplification, noise cancellation, it Bluetooths right to your phone, and I mean, you can have Superman type hearing.
It is a game-changing piece of equipment. I hope everybody listening gets one.
Go to echohealth.com. It's ekohealth.com. Use code JSP. It gives you $50 off your order. Let you know that we sent you. Hey, Tom, who makes some of the strongest CBD products on the market today?
That would be CBD Stat.
And whose products are completely THC free?
I believe to be CBD Stat.
And who makes a warming salve, a calming, cooling lotion, oils, and other salves?
I'm going to say CBD Stat.
And who loves their healthcare people?
Definitely CBD Stat.
That's right. CBD Stat is going to give you a 40% discount for being in healthcare. You go to cbdstat.care/healthcare. Fill out that form. They're going to give you a permanent 40% discount for anything that you order from them. You're listening to our show and you're not in healthcare and you're like, well, I feel left out. Well, we don't want that to happen. You go to cbdstat.care, you put everything in your cart, and then when you're ready to check out, Tom, what code do they use?
JSP20.
Yeah, JSP20. It's going to give them 20% off their product just because you're listening to our voice right now. Go check them out. cbdstat.care. You know, Tom, speaking of the cutting room floor, there is a lot that ends up on the cutting room floor. And honestly, probably for us, one of the funniest moments ended up on the cutting room floor. But I just want to give a shout out to Tiffany because she knows what she did. It was hilarious. We ended up cutting it because of time and some other issues with it. But
yeah, so it got cut. But I will say we were doing some stuff. It was the beginning of the pandemic. I think everybody was super stressed, especially in healthcare. And we were trying to do this show, and Tiffany just decided to ad lib. And literally, I know for sure on this show, I have never laughed that hard. Like, I was literally on my floor, headphones off, like snot bubbles, laughing. My stomach hurt. Like, it was that level of intensity. And Tiffany, thank you. And hopefully, maybe we should have maybe we should do that sometime. Do like a reunion series. Just, hey, let's see how everyone's doing. But I definitely had
back on. I mean,
do what?
So see if we can get Margaret Fitzgerald back on.
Well, I would love to, because we got to do it during hockey season, though. Because October 28th, guess what? The Columbus Blue Jackets are playing the Boston Bruins at Nationwide Arena. So guess who's on the chopping block now? Margaret. So you go ahead and step up to me again like you did pre-show before that episode, and we'll go. It's fisticuffs again. All right, lady. Don't think I'm going to take it easy on you just because you are the educational godmother of nurse practitioners. I will take you out at the knees, much like your dirty Boston Bruins will do to anybody else. So just keep that in mind. You are on notice.
See, this is the stuff that Jason normally cuts out, guys. This
this is the part Ben texts him. Hey, the part where he threatens somebody, please cut that out of our episode. No, Mrs. Fitzgerald knows I'm kidding, so it's all right. But I think, Ben, that we have had some moments that I am glad we shared, and I'm glad we shared them on the air. I'm glad people got to hear them. One of the things and it's actually relatively new, was the death episode, when we were talking about handling things as a provider versus when we were bedside. And if there are people out there that are either bedside or they're a provider and you didn't hear that episode, I think that's a really good episode for anybody to listen to that's in healthcare, but in particular nurses at bedside or those that are providers. It was a trip down memory lane not in a good or bad way, but like you said earlier, maybe like a cathartic, like I got to talk about it with you and I got to talk about it in a format that I knew other people that could empathize were also going to hear it.
Yeah.
And so I thought for me, that was a really helpful thing.
Well, and I think that we have always been one to try to look at multiple sides of things. I mean, we have, one of our first guests ever was Andy, who was a heart transplant recipient. And so, I mean, and then we've had Anil on who was a patient, and we've had multiple patients on looking at it from their perspective. And I think that has been something that I don't know that you see that a lot in medical podcasting. But I mean, I think we've always been willing to keep an open mind about everything, I guess would be the best way to word that.
I agree. I think that's how we are, and just in general. So I'm not surprised the show is like that. But that is I would actually say a point of pride for me that we do that we do stay neutral. Now, having said that, Ben, there have been a few times that we have said, while Just Some Podcast Media and Just Some Podcasts for Advanced Practitioners is neutral in stance, we just are. We believe in keeping an open mind and looking at everything from every angle. The point of this podcast is to educate and have great discussions that help people and affect healthcare. That's what we want to do, right? So you can't really poke one person in the eye and tell another person they're great and then expect to have an actual open conversation. It's just not going to happen. That doesn't mean that when we see something that's egregious, we don't step up and say it. For instance, one of my moments, and I'm sure Jason's very glad that he wasn't around for this if he has ever heard this episode, but when the state of Ohio, prior to Roe v. Wade being overturned, and again, I don't care what a person's political or personal opinion on that is. Okay, that's for them to decide. And I don't mean I don't care as in I think they're bad or they're good depending on it. I mean as in it doesn't affect my opinion. I don't allow your opinion to affect my opinion. I believe your opinion is your opinion. That's what it is. Okay. But there's a big difference between opinions and facts. And that's where I started to have a problem with what we did here in the state of Ohio when they tried to pass a law on abortion. And again, whether you believe in it or you don't believe it is regardless in the fact that they tried to pass a law to punish people in the healthcare field for something that was impossible. It was literally impossible in every sense of the word. They wanted to actually charge providers with murder if those providers did not take an ectopic pregnancy and then reimplant it in a uterus, that we could be charged with murder. They did not consult a physician. They did not do any research. They just said, hey, I know I don't like abortion, so I'm going to jam it down your throat without doing anything to prove whether this law is, one, viable, or two, helpful. And so we took that on and we said, no, I don't care what's going on. And then though this is likely to anger some people, this is stupid and this is wrong. And we said it, and I couldn't have yelled it any more than I did for at least 10 minutes during that episode. I called out state representatives by their name. I said, this is how you get a hold of me. If you want to have a conversation either on or off the air, let's have it. And of course, why would those political weasels, spineless cowards ever get a hold of us? They wouldn't. But that's one of the things I was proud of this show, is not just that episode, but when we did do stuff like that, when we said, no.
Let's say we did one where we talked about the senator in Washington who made the comment about nurses playing with
cards. Yeah.
We did the episode with Josh Strickland where he'd talking about him getting doxxed in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Nurses with cards. So yeah. And then
a nurse getting attacked by other nurses in a group that's made to support nurses. Yeah. Good move, guys.
And then of course all the stuff with Redondavat and we've had, muscles.
Still a tragedy. Yeah.
And I mean, we have always been one to confront issues if we feel like we need to.
Agreed. But I still stand by, yeah, you're going to hear our opinion to a point, but that's also kind of what the show is about. Like, here's an informed opinion on how we view things, but we also try and look at it from every point of view. And at the end of the day, it's still your opinion as the listener, to agree, disagree, whatever. And we accept that. And that's how this show is built. And we like that. So I have always been very happy with how we do things. To be completely fair, if I ever wasn't happy, I don't think we'd have a show anymore. So and I don't mean that bad. I just mean like we've always took that stance. Like, this is our show. We're going to do what we want to do. It's our show, and that's how we're going to run things. And
if I had to pin you down to name a few favorite episodes,
I'm going to be completely honest. I wish you had asked me this before, and I'm going to try and look through the list while you're looking. I have podcast amnesia. Okay. And that's not a real thing. Okay. Really so if anybody's listening to this, they try and Google that, you're not going to find it. What I mean is very, very, very often, I don't remember what we talked about during the show afterwards. And then Ben will be like, so when you said this, I was like, I said what? And then he starts telling me something I said. And I have to go, oh my God, what was I doing? Now, that doesn't mean I don't have memory of it. It just means for some reason, I don't have automatic recall. Yeah. Like, I have to listen to the episode and think about it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I was getting at. So I think it's a defense mechanism. I think that's why I can run my mouth on here now and not feel bad about it. Cause my brain's like, yeah, you won't remember. So it's cool. If I had to,
and I can answer first if you want to.
Yeah, I want you to answer first, but I'll tell you right now, one of the ones that I don't think I'll ever forget is interviewing Margaret Fitzgerald.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I know I said all that stuff earlier, but that's like tongue in cheek. I think for anybody that's a nurse practitioner going to school to be a nurse practitioner or heard that episode understands that was not an episode that we took lightly. Like, that was it was fun. But it was not like we were like, oh, who cares? It's Margaret frickin' Fitzgerald, on the show.
That was one that we ended up scheduling like 2 months in advance because of her crazy schedule. And so I can remember texting Tom the day that she confirmed, hey, this is the day I'm good to record. And I was like, oh my God, we got Margaret Fitzgerald. And the thing that resonated with me was, and I'm pretty sure it was on the show, it may have been pre-show, but Tom was like talking to her and said, I don't know how we got you here. Like, I don't know how we got you on the show. And she said, it's really simple. You asked. And it was like, that was it. While it's a horrible episode, honestly, it was so fun.
Alcohol. Yeah. Oh, yes, I knew it.
It was great. The one that I probably laughed at the most was the review of Flatliners episode, because you had so many one-liners in there about, the guy getting his ass beat multiple times. And
that was a truly fun episode. Okay, so let's go back to this. All right. And I honestly don't implore anybody to go out and listen to the alcohol episode. Okay. But it was probably the funnest thing we've done.
I would agree.
It's certainly the most memorable to me, even though I don't remember it for two reasons. I want to say the Flatliners was also up there. That was also another one of those. Looking through this, and I'm seeing several of these. Honestly, so I hate to sound mushy, but the very first episode is one of my favorites. I've never listened to it.
And it sounds horrendous.
I cannot bring myself to listen to most of our shows. And the reason I do now, because somebody asked me that, oh, you listen to your shows? I said, I do now because I want to hear the things I mess up, like words I repeat too much, better ways I could phrase things that sound better, etc. So that's why I listen to the show. I cannot stand listening to myself talk. I know that's hard to believe listening to the show, but I cringe hearing myself over a radio. I do not like it. But I want to make a better product so that hopefully more people listen. The very first one, maybe because it was our very first one, I would say after that, workplace violence was one, because that means a lot to me. Workplace violence is a big thing to me. So that was a good one. Let's see here. I'm just kind of scrolling through them as we're doing alcohol effects. Good Lord. But I think when we talked about gout and kidney stones, They were a trip down memory lane that I'd usually rather forget, but they were okay. And I remember one person sent us a message because I read it, and he said, and I want to say it was during the kidney stone one, that he said, "Oh my God." And I threw my phone because he was like, that sounds disgusting and terrible and painful. And so he chucked his phone. And I was like, well, if it makes you feel better, it was that bad. So, I mean, that works out. I can remember when I think about it, I can remember something about just about every episode. When we did the moral burnout one, we got to talk to Dr. Maltier, fantastic guy that we actually had all three of us had not just a good professional conversation before the show, but a good personal conversation. Like, he just fit right in. Like, he talked to us like we'd been doing this for months. And so I feel like every episode. So if you wanted to pin me down, I would definitely say the alcohol episode. I would say the first episode we talked about COVID with Tiffany, and we first started going into COVID was one I remember. Margaret Fitzgerald. So, I mean, there are a handful, but it's always hard for me to tell. Like, I don't know that I have one favorite, but if I have one that always comes back around, it's the alcohol episode, which makes me think we really need to do it again.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I guess we could. Ooh.
Well, to be fair, and I know we're getting close to the end of the show, but to be fair, Ben, we have drank on other episodes. We just didn't. We just didn't drink to that level.
Yeah.
So a couple of times, I know I was shaking the glass. I'm like, whatever, Ben. Clink, 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 clink. Like shaking the glass in the background. So I'm like, whatever.
The other ones that really got me were the ones that kind of pulled on the heartstrings. Shannon talking about her time in New York.
Yeah.
And then bringing Christine from Antidote Stories and Medicine on to talk about her breakdown that she had during the pandemic and the thousands of people that she took care of. Those to me resonated. But the one that really, and I don't know if I ever told you this or not, the one that really got pulled on my heartstrings the most, and it's because it was you. I think it was the first episode that the first episode we had Christine on.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. Yeah.
Where we were all just kind of sitting around shooting the shit and telling stories. And you were talking about the incident that was your breaking point from law enforcement into nursing. And knowing you for how I've known you for 25 years now, I heard your voice change just slightly when you were talking about it, and it broke my heart. It really did, because I felt everything that you were feeling in that moment.
Well, and certainly, and that was in 2005 when that incident happened. And I'd be honest, to this day, it still is a wound. It's like the scar that never heals. I mean, it's a lot better. Obviously, time does do some healing. I just think that some things hit you and you're truly just never the same. And honestly, that was one. And honestly, that's not. See, honestly, I just said it twice in a row. That's one of the words I got to stop saying so often, Ben. That's why I listen to the show. When you said Christina, I was actually thinking about that episode because I was going to ask you, is there any episodes that make you sad or make you angry? Because for me, I actually don't want to say one made me angry, but I have one that I sit there and I just like grunt and cringe when I hear it. And it's not bad. It's just because it's not how we normally do a show. And I just felt like it was getting steered and I didn't like it as much.
I don't have one that off the top of my head makes me angry.
But Christina, the first episode was okay for me. Was my wife's best friend, but clearly she hung out with us so much. She's de facto one of my good friends now, And so even though we were talking to her about her cancer, she was still here, like I was talking to her. She was sitting a foot away from me.
Yeah.
And even though we were talking about terrible things about like her death, she was still sitting here. So I'm not unrealistic. I knew she was going to die. She hadn't, when she passed. And I knew I wanted to re-release that episode. I didn't tell anybody. And I knew it took you by surprise when I started the episode because I was very abrupt. I was very upset. And I think that's why I wanted to say it like that. And I wanted to leave it like that.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't trying to be. Yeah. So what I said is my friend died. And I just, bam, just laid it out there. And it wasn't for shock value, and it wasn't to make someone sit up or pay attention. It was because I was hurt. And far too often I let my emotions get ahead of me on myself, but this wasn't actually because of me. It was because I was watching. I was hurt because my friend died, but I was more hurt having to watch my wife lose her best friend, and watch her husband and her young son deal with the loss of their wife and their mother. And the reason I got into healthcare, which, circling back to what brought this all up, was that incident made me feel helpless. And that's why I said I'll become a nurse and I'll never feel helpless again. Not because I think nurses, I love being a nurse, but I don't think we're Supermen. But at that point in my life, that's what I was missing. Like, I had just been in a medical incident and I couldn't help the person and they died. And so I told myself that if I did this, that I could not feel helpless and I could help everybody. And so I realized, and honestly, I realized it while we did the show, Ben, but believe it or not, my wife wanted to listen to it when we were leaving the funeral. I think she wanted to hear like her voice. Like, there was just, and when we were listening to that episode, it kind of brought everything back around. Like, I felt helpless again. And that's why I think it was a good episode, but it was terrible listening to that recording again and going, man, like, it just opened all those wounds. That's one of the things I love about doing this show, is I get to have that experience, and it's like a therapy for me, I guess, in some ways. But I'm hoping that me going through this will help somebody out there listening, because I will tell you, some of the darkest times in my mental health, other than Ben, I didn't have anybody. I didn't even know my wife when some of these incidents have happened. I had nobody in my life. I was a single guy. We didn't believe in mental health training in a lot of police departments, so I just suffered. And I'm hoping that maybe someone listening to me talk now, or listening to those shows then, they heard something, or they felt something, or they related to something, so that they didn't feel alone or helpless. And while that's hard to convey over a podcast, especially when we laugh and say fart jokes a lot, that's what I hope. I hope that somebody learns something, or they feel something, or they hear something from Ben, or from me, or from one of our guests, that they go, I get it now. Or they hear that and they go, I've done that. That's what I want to help people. I wanted them to learn. I wanted it to be educational, but I guess ultimately I want us to connect. And so when I think about all the episodes we've done, and that's what brought this about, that's what this ramble is about, as I start thinking about all the funny episodes and the sad episodes and the episodes I didn't like. If I didn't like because of what happened, I didn't like because of the way I sounded, whatever. The point is, this whole experience, I wouldn't have changed any of it, because it brought us to where we're at now.
True.
It's been a ride.
The connections that we have built, I mean, we got to go to Nashville and do a live show.
Yes, which I will always be thankful for.
That we built in this podcasting, in this nursing podcasting world.
And we met some great people down there. Not Jamie, but everybody else was pretty cool.
Stop it. You're so Anyway, so yeah, I mean, season 5, we're going to kick it off with the next episode. I have an idea in mind that, we've not done a super funny episode for a while. And when I first talked to Tom about the idea, he's like, I don't get it. And then I said, no, think about this. And he's like, okay, I get it now. Yeah, I think season 5 we're going to kick off with a bang, so to speak. And let's tune it over to our listeners. What episodes were your favorite? What episodes did you connect with? Do you want us to do a season 5? Do you want us to just be like, hey guys, shut the hell up? We've listened to you for 4 years now.
I cannot listen to one more damn ramble from Tom, for God's sakes. Look, I can barely keep saying them, people. Okay. So look, if you can't hear him, I understand.
But yeah, let us know. JSP@justsomepodcast.com. Reach out to us on our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything. You know the stuff. I'm not going to do the whole thing. It's been 4 years now. It.
If you don't know it, you ain't gonna. So you go and learn today.
But on that note, my brother, happy anniversary. It's been a great
happy anniversary.
Years. I am looking forward to, maybe one more. I mean, we'll see. No, we'll see. But no,
we're totally gonna be Joe Rogan big by the end of this year.
Let's hope.
Exactly.
Nobody else I would rather do this show with. You know that. You're my best friend. I love you, and you are wonderful most of the time.
I have my moments, yes.
But to everybody else out there, wash your hands, take care of yourself. Have a great week.
Hey, everybody, stay safe out there.
Practice swearing just to pass the time. Lately I see why I am alone. I caught some road rage and I thought of you, and all the many times you say I should have known. Took a class so I could find my G.